We got breaking news into SportsCenter and a rare joint statement. The four active professional sports leagues, the NBA, ML.
We interrupt this global pandemic to bring you a 2020 NFL mock draft. This NFL mock draft was brought to you by the number 3. So the first wave of free agency is in the books, and I've got to say, that was such a welcomed distraction from what's going on around the world right now. As expected, NFL GMs reacted as if the uncertainty of the CBA had them in their own self-quarantine during February and March. Since my 2020 NFL mock draft with the number 2 theme was such a big hit, I decided to keep that train rolling. Mock draft 2 was my overly aggressive version, so mock draft 3 is going to have a much safer approach to it. That means my third mock of the year comes with 3 rounds and 3 major trades. And it's been a weird start to 2020 to say the least, and the NFL gets a little credit for changes in the scouting combine and the CBA really mixing things up on us. I wasn't expecting the CBA to get approved by the players, and I thought that the offseason might get off to a slow start. I was all ready to release a mock draft after the first day based around some rumors and free agent discussions, but there was barely any time for rumors before Bill O'Brien showed us what a couple days of social distancing can do to a person by trading away one of the best wide receivers in the league for a washed up running back that can't stay healthy. In my original mock draft 3, I had a trade scenario with Stephon Diggs going to the Ravens for their first round pick, but he ended up in Buffalo while the Ravens did their own fair share of wheeling and dealing elsewhere. So I scrapped that mock, loaded up into the Draft Network mock machine, and cooked up another version based around the first wave of free agency. As free agency continues to unfold, please let me know in the comments the impact that certain signings, trades, or even rumors will have on certain picks that I've laid out here. For example, I didn't have the Texans picking a wide receiver in the previous mock draft, but now that has become a much higher priority for the Texans despite the Randall Cobb signing. But we'll get into all that stuff in due time. The goal for this mock draft is going to be 3,000 likes. That feels like a lot, but you guys hit the goal of 2,000 likes in less than 2 days on mock draft 2, so please continue to help support this channel by liking the video, and hopefully by the end of the video you'll decide to stick around and subscribe to the channel. But let's get started with this NFL free agency mock. I'm just going to skip over the Bengals' first pick because we all are pretty aware. Joe Burrow to the Bengals. It's a done deal. Let's move on to number 2 with the Redskins. As much as I try to skip over these first 2 picks almost completely, something always seems to pop up to create an opportunity for Chase Young to be passed over by the Redskins. I'm not under the impression that Tua is a realistic option for the Redskins, but with Trent Williams coming out once again and requesting a trade, it does increase the offensive line concerns slightly. You could argue that trading down for one of these top offensive tackles does make a little more sense now, and Chase Young was always going to be a luxury pick for the Redskins, but drafting for need over taking the best talent, it's how to get fired 101. I think the Redskins still need to and will eventually take Chase Young, but this has been a terrible front office in recent history, so I wouldn't put anything past them, but I'm sticking with Chase Young at number 2 to the Redskins. Forgive me if I sound like a broken record, but the 2020 NFL Draft starts with the Lions at number 3. There's going to be some kind of blockbuster trade that impacts this pick, whether it be from a team coming up to get a quarterback or the Lions front office decides to prepare for the future by moving on from Matthew Stafford and taking a quarterback themselves. I anticipate it will be the former scenario, and for the sake of mixing it up, I won't be repeating the trade scenario involving the Dolphins coming up for Tua that I've put in my last 2 mock drafts, even though I still feel like that is the most likely outcome. I honestly think that the Lions should grab their own quarterback of the future though, regardless of the plan with Matthew Stafford. That is the best long-term option here, but I'm afraid the Lions organization isn't quite daring enough to make a move like that. They've always been kind of a conservative front office in their approach, and with so many teams that may be trying to trade up for a quarterback, they'll probably keep it safe and conservative once again. After missing out on Tom Brady, the Chargers announced they're sticking with Tyrod Taylor as their veteran quarterback for 2020. So now we can all go back to penciling in Justin Herbert to the Chargers, right? What if they don't want Herbert? He doesn't feel like the kind of quarterback that's going to get a fan base really excited, and the Chargers have to place as much priority on selling tickets as winning football games right now. I mean, the Rams are over here trying to trick their fans into rooting for them with their new logo. Tua Tagovailoa could help the Chargers reestablish a fan base by bringing a bunch of Alabama supporters in, and they are the closest NFL franchise to Hawaii, which would support Tua for obvious reasons. The redshirt rookie year that Tua would need fits perfectly with Tyrod Taylor being under contract for one more season, and if he falters, Easton Stick, last year's 5th round pick, could get a chance to show if he's got what it takes as a potential NFL quarterback, or maybe even just Tua's future backup. The best part of these 3 quarterbacks being on the same roster is that they would all bring a similar skill set to the table as undersized, mobile quarterbacks, so the offensive system could begin installation from day 1 of the Chargers' 2020 OTAs, and it wouldn't have to be tweaked as much based on the quarterback. quarterback. Obviously, with Tua being left-handed, things have to be maybe a mirror flip-flop, but that's not too difficult. At pick number 4, we've got the New York Giants. And apparently the Giants are open for business and will be entertaining a trade down. Oh, Dave Gettleman, I don't believe you. Gettleman's either entertaining a request from ownership to explore a scenario where the Giants could trade down, or maybe the guy's just craving some attention and social interaction with this announcement. In the end, I don't think he's going to be able to find the value that he's looking for to pass on one of these top prospects. Not because there won't be enough trades thrown at him to choose from. I just think his idea of what would be worth it is maybe a little overvalued because he never wants to trade back. But I kind of get it. If you spent months running a bunch of scenarios and you've fallen in love with a certain prospect or two, it's hard to risk losing them or moving to a spot where it's an entirely different tier of prospect that's going to be available to you. That's why in my last mock draft, I gave Isiah Simmons to the Giants because I think it's going to be hard for Gettleman to pass him up. But like I said, this is a safer, gentler mock draft, so I wanted to go Georgia offensive tackle Andrew Thomas here. I think he's the safest, most battle-tested offensive tackle in this class. But I think I was onto something when I said that Gettleman likes his unicorns, and that's why I gave them Isiah Simmons. Well, Louisville offensive tackle Mekhi Becton offers that unicorn potential at a position of great need for the Giants at the same time. This dude is a physical specimen at the position, but his quick rise does scare me a little. I like stability and consistency in my offensive line, and Becton could just be truly an ascending talent. That determination is above my pay grade, but I do like the fit here with the Giants at number 4. At number 5, the Miami Dolphins are on the clock. To me, this honestly is a nightmare situation for the Dolphins. The quarterback that the owner had loved going into the season is already off the board after the Dolphins failed to tank well enough to lock him up. Now they're stuck with reaching on a quarterback they probably don't like as much, or tanking for another season and trying to get Trevor Lawrence next year. I don't know if the Dolphins really had or have interest in Justin Herbert, like was reported right after the season. I thought that was a smokescreen, to be honest. Now, before it seems like I'm disrespecting Herbert, I love the skill set. I mean, the guy is an ideal rookie quarterback in Madden, meaning he can do everything, right? And then everything that we hear about him off the field is that his teammates love him. So that could be all that matters about his demeanor. But I wasn't concerned with these quote-unquote red flags for fellow Oregon alum Marcus Mariota. But I'm beginning to lean towards the idea that you need to be an alpha quarterback at the NFL level, and that beta mentality, it can win at the college level, but Herbert just doesn't seem to have that dog in him. I'm not a fan of this pick. I know it's my mock draft, but I'm not a fan of the pick, even though it is the safe pick to make. Speaking of the number 3 and keeping things safe, I want to take a minute to thank the real sponsor of this video, Manscaped, and their new 3.0 trimmer. For those that don't know, Manscaped is the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming and hygiene. After 2 years of research and development, the new Lawnmower 3.0 waterproof body trimmer has just been released and comes with a ton of new upgrades, like the upgraded 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology, a new lithium-ion battery, which gives you up to 90 minutes of battery life, a nice no-slip grip handle for the shower, a built-in LED light that illuminates grooming areas for closer, more precise trimming, and of course a new and improved trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology. With all this extra time on our hands in the upcoming weeks, you're going to want to make sure you come out on the other side of quarantine as a freshly groomed man. When you use my promo code NFL20, you get 20% off your purchase, free shipping, and 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag and their high-performance anti-chafing boxer briefs. Once again, that promo code is NFL20. Big thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring this 2020 NFL mock draft. And then at pick number 6, the Lions are back on the clock after their trade down with the Chargers. And this is why it's so predictable at this point that the Lions trade down, because there are 3 quarterback needy teams possibly willing to secure their guy. And the Lions will be able to fill a major hole with a bona fide blue chip defensive player still at number 6, 7, 5, whichever one they choose to trade down with. On the clock now, they've got their choice between Derek Brown, Isiah Simmons, or Jeffrey Okudah. This is one of the most commonly mocked scenarios for a reason for the Lions, and that's why I still have the Lions taking the safest cornerback prospect in the 2020 NFL draft. If you don't know about Okudah, his confidence and sassiness to that ignorant reporter that asked him about all his sloppy penalties, his sassy response translates to his play on the field, and this guy would be a great addition to any secondary. One of the most shocking stories of the 2020 NFL free agency season was the way the Panthers treated the greatest player in their franchise's history. I realize that it's a business and teams move on from old guys all the time, and if Cam wanted a new contract, then yeah, you gotta move on. But to publicly say that you've given him permission to seek out a trade, only for him to dispute that report in an Instagram comment moments later, and then on top of that, Panthers official Twitter account tweeted out one of those "thanks for a great career" pictures while the man is still on the roster. The Panthers social media team is usually really on point, so this was over overall just a weird situation. But unfortunately, the Cam Newton era is over in Charlotte, and I have a feeling I know where he's headed next. As for the Panthers though, Teddy Bridgewater is going to take over as the starting quarterback, and he's going to be a good stopgap guy while the new head coach Matt Rule sets up a winning culture there. Teddy's actually perfect for that, but he's never going to be more than a bus driver at quarterback. That's fine for the meantime while they build a defense to carry him, and if Teddy doesn't seem to be working out after a year, then he's likely helped the Panthers position themselves for local product Trevor Lawrence in 2021. But this way you also don't have to waste a precious year of Christian McCaffrey's career by tanking with Will Grier and Kyle Allen manning the ship in 2020. And this is kind of what the Russell Okung move signals to me. Panthers are opting for short-term pass protection over potentially long-term run blocking. Russell Okung has 1 year left on his contract, and then it's going to open up $13 million on the cap next year, so he could either be brought back at a much cheaper rate, or the Panthers should go all in on maximizing the talent with free agents and surrounding Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields maybe even, and just surround them one of those rookie quarterbacks on a rookie contract with veteran NFL talent. So then let's turn our attention to a young chess piece that actually played with the future first overall pick at Clemson, Isiah Simmons. And I think this is still a thing, but last I heard the Panthers have never drafted a Clemson player, which is only significant because it's probably the best college program within the Carolinas, yet they've drafted 11 players from other Carolina colleges like UNC, South Carolina, and even Appalachian State. So yeah, I think the Panthers should not only change that this year, but should plan or prepare for using their next 2 first-round picks on Clemson players. At number 8, we've got the Arizona Cardinals, and they made the first big wow move of the 2020 NFL offseason by trading a washed-up David Johnson and a second-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins and a 4th-round pick. A lot of people wanted the Cardinals to reunite CeeDee Lamb with Kyler Murray, but no one's going to argue with the value that the Cardinals got here for DeAndre Hopkins. Solidifying the wide receiver position now makes offensive line the obvious choice here at number 8. Jedrick Wills was the right tackle for the Crimson Tide, so he could slide right into the right tackle position for the Cardinals, while DJ Humphries earns that new contract manning the left side. At number 9, the Jaguars, they're in a weird place and could go a variety of different ways this offseason. The quarterback position for them is still up in the air, but maybe if they could find a sucker to take this god-awful contract of Nick Foles off their books, it might free them up a little bit with some cap space to actually make some moves in free agency. The defense is going to look completely different compared to their 2018 AFC Championship squad, but defense has always been the Jaguars' strength in the few seasons they've actually had a strength. Derrick Brown was one of the guys with weird combine results, but the things that he did well at the combine do translate well to his game on the field, and pairing him with Josh Allen would give the Jags a solid combo on the defensive line to shape the whole defense around. At number 10, we've got the Browns. The Browns were pretty aggressive in day 1 of the NFL's legal tampering window and made Austin Hooper the highest paid tight end in the league, while also signing Jack Conklin to be their right tackle. Conklin frees them up so that offensive line is not as glaring of a hole going into the NFL draft for them, but their O-line is just so terrible that I still think it makes sense for them to go offensive tackle here at pick number 10. In this scenario, they've got 2 really solid options to choose from that offer unique traits here: Andrew Thomas or Tristan Wirfs. It seems like a cool option to get another left tackle named Thomas after the success the Browns had with their last one with the first name Joe, but I have them going with Tristan Wirfs because he could potentially play in 3 different spots along their offensive line and be a difference maker from the Browns wherever they needed him most. With Jack Conklin probably going to be the right tackle, Tristan Wirfs could slide in at right guard and be the Brandon Scherf, Zach Martin on this offensive line, or the man is talented enough to just slide right on over to the left and play left tackle. At number 11, we've got the Jets. Don't let the Jets signing of George Fant fool you into thinking the Jets offensive line is fixed, or even better than it was before adding the former Seahawk. Fant is definitely an intriguing player, and to me, he's the ideal 6th offensive lineman on your roster because he can literally fill in anywhere along the line and be like a swing backup while also provide some extra blocking lining up as a tight end, and that gives you an opportunity to run some trick plays for fat man touchdowns. Everybody loves those. But the wide receiver market in the free agency hasn't been as rich as people might have thought, and I think that's due to all the wide receiver prospects in the draft. So Robbie Anderson might end up back with the Jets for less than anticipated, and I'm sure that Jets fans are still dying for a wide receiver to be taken with the 11th pick, but the Jets' real issue is that their offensive line doesn't provide an opportunity for their current offensive weapons to thrive. So let's get Sam Darnold some Ghostbusters here. Andrew Thomas is the safest of the big 4 offensive tackles in my opinion. The other 3 feel more like projections of their potential greatness, while Andrew Thomas is SEC battle tested. I'm no offensive line expert in any sense of the imagination, but Thomas falling to the Jets would be a steal while also addressing their biggest need. At number 12, we've got the Raiders on the clock. Their big move was signing Marcus Mariota, and I think he landed in what was the best possible spot for him. I'm actually really impressed with the Raiders for getting a potential steal at quarterback and not chasing the big name in Tom Brady so that he become a Vegas circus attraction. I guess Oregon is pretty close to Nevada, so they're probably actually hoping the former Heisman winner can pull in some fan base from there, but from a football standpoint, this makes so much more sense than Brady. John Gruden is going to put Mariota in the perfect position to succeed with his legs, and I'm assuming in a way to avoid contact as much as possible. I don't know what this spells for Derek Carr, but regardless of who starts at quarterback, I think the Raiders' vision is pretty clear for 2020. They are expecting to be playoff contenders in their first year in Vegas, and the only way you're going to do that in the AFC West is with the ability to score points. CeeDee Lamb has made it easier on 3 pretty successful college quarterbacks, 2 of which went on to win the Heisman and be selected number 1 overall in their respective draft classes. John Gruden doesn't usually place a lot of faith in offensive rookie prospects outside of running back, so that's why I've been hesitant to have them take a wide receiver here over trying to get players to help slow down the Chiefs. But with Marcus Mariota's ability to scramble and improvise, I think that a backyard quarterback needs a backyard wide receiver, and CeeDee Lamb is the best of the best in this draft class. At number 13, surprisingly, we have the 49ers now on the clock. The 49ers trading DeForest Buckner was a surprising move, but it made sense since he was drafted for a different scheme, and the 49ers have found replacements for him in the draft since then. You've got 5 years out of Buckner on a rookie contract and turned him into a top 15 draft pick. That's pretty good. Might seem risky, but mortgaging some assets from the defense to improve the offense is the way to go right now. Now I'm just trying to figure out what the 49ers plan on using this 13th overall pick on. Offensive tackle and wide receiver are 2 positions where I could see them looking to improve, and the way this draft class is so rich at those positions probably made the move to trade Buckner even easier in their eyes. In this scenario, they just missed out on the elite offensive lineman, but Jerry Jeudy fell right into their lap, and the idea of Debo and Jeudy would really give Jimmy Garoppolo some diverse weapons to throw to, with obviously George Kittle doing his thing in the middle too. At number 14, we've got the Bucks, and it's still the most shocking move of the offseason in my opinion that the Patriots really let Tom Brady finish his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No offense, Bucks fans, but after 5 years of Jameis Winston, it's going to take more than a 42-year-old quarterback to wash that meme stink off of you. I'm also surprised that Bruce Arians wanted to tie the end of his coaching career onto a guy that looked like a shell of himself last year. We'll have to wait and see, but I know that whenever Tom Brady has been questioned or doubted, he's responded really well. I just don't know if his body physically will hold up to that. But either way, he's going to be surrounded by weapons in this offense, which is something he did not have for the last couple years in New England. So I think that the Buccaneers need to continue to build up the defense for a more balanced roster overall, and Bruce Arians might want the team to still snag a quarterback prospect later on in this draft as a developmental backup just in case, but they can't allow the defense to regress after the strides that they took last year. Ndamukong Suh might be back on a short-term deal, or he might get swooned by another team in free agency. But either way, I like what Javon Kinlaw could bring to this defense in a similar role to what Suh did last year for them. Kinlaw is a nice, safe option for the Bucks that could provide an instant jolt while also becoming a building block for the future. Number 15, we have the Denver Broncos. The Broncos made the shrewd move of trading for Jaguars cornerback AJ Bouye in what was essentially a salary dump by the Jaguars. And now that eliminates the need to spend a first-round pick on the secondary and ease the possible transition away from Chris Harris. I read that the Broncos want to buy a defense and draft an offense. This philosophy only reinforces the previous pick that I had for the Broncos selection, and that's Henry Ruggs III. His speed to complement the big-bodied Courtland Sutton would set up Drew Lock for success, which I'm in favor of so that we can get more shots of him rapping Young Jeezy on the sidelines. Before free agency, the Falcons had a number of ways that they could go in the draft, but they've really narrowed it down to where I think they want to address their defense in the 2020 NFL Draft with 2 moves. It was the release of Desmond Trufant and the signing of Dante Fowler. In the unpublished version of this mock, I had the Falcons picking Clavon Chasen out of LSU, but Dante Fowler really is just what this Falcons defense needed as far as a pass rush goes. They might be hoping for Javon Kinlaw to fall, but cornerback was a need for them even before cutting Trufant, so I like CJ Henderson to be an easy transition for them as one of the most athletic cornerbacks in this draft. And in the NFC South, these corners are going to have their hands full with the talent at wide receiver. At pick 17, we've got the Dallas Cowboys on the clock, and after letting Byron Jones sign with the Dolphins, the Cowboys need defensive backs, at least 2 of them in this draft class. But with Robert Quinn signing for big money with the Bears, they're left with an even bigger need at pass rush in my opinion. With the new CBA basically allowing players to smoke weed now, Randy Gregory might actually have a shot to make it a full season without failing a drug test now. He still has to be reinstated as if he's operating under the old CBA, and I think that's part of why he didn't try harder to play last year when he may have been eligible. I don't think he wanted to end up like Josh Gordon. But Randy Gregory can't be counted on until he's actually on the roster once again, and I like Clavon Chasen to give the Cowboys a young pass rusher that can also play in space. New defensive coordinator Mike Nolan is a 3-4 guy, but the Cowboys insist they aren't making the switch from a 4-3 just yet. Chasen is versatile enough to play in either scheme and can give Mike Nolan some flexibility to play with multiple defensive fronts. At pick number 18, we've got the Dolphins. They went ahead and signed Eric Flowers, who looked a lot better at guard for the Redskins, but man, I never saw him getting day one money in free agency. However, he's not the only piece the Dolphins need to add to fix this offensive line, and should probably look to add another veteran on a low budget deal later on in free agency as the money settles down a little bit, but then still keep their options open for an offensive tackle in this deep draft class. This is actually one of my favorite mock draft scenarios, and it's because it makes so much sense from a player development standpoint, and that's drafting an offensive tackle after securing a young quarterback. It's an underrated relationship on the field, so I'm keeping it safe here and grabbing a young offensive tackle in Josh Jones out of Houston so that Justin Herbert and Josh Jones can develop together and bring the Dolphins back to relevancy. At pick number 19, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock, and they have been very busy in free agency this year, but none of these moves have been major deals or blockbuster deals. They've just been above average players for reasonably sized contracts. So what I think that means and what teams try to do is not allow a need to be pigeonholed by the time that they get to the draft. Not only is that a tough position to put yourself in, hoping that somebody falls to you like that, it also makes it very obvious and easy for teams to leap in front of you and target a player that you might have at the top of your draft board because you have such a wide open hole. So I think that the Raiders have done a really good job of filling all of those holes, most notably corner and linebacker. They filled the hole at linebacker so well, in fact, that I passed over LSU linebacker Patrick Queen here for another LSU teammate of his, and that's cornerback Christian Fulton. Fulton is a great all-around cornerback. I think he's way better than people are giving him credit for. I think that he may have been playing with some injuries also. After getting Derek Brown at number 9, it seems like the Jaguars are in a great position here at 20 to fill the obvious need at cornerback and replace AJ Bouye. But 3 out of the 4 teams picking before them here also need a cornerback, so the Jaguars might need to grab their favorite cornerback at number 9 if they really want him. They signed former first rounder Darqueze Dennard to serve as a band-aid in case a scenario like this presents itself, but instead of reaching on a cornerback, there's another defensive back that's fallen into their lap at a position of need also, and that's safety Grant Delpit. Projecting where Delpit goes is all over the place for me because I'm a big fan and I could see him being worthy of the Jaguars' 9th overall pick. And then there's some people that want to isolate his 2019 film and label him as a guy that just can't tackle. But honestly, who knows where the Jaguars are going to go because they feel like they're kind of headed into a year of limbo after cleaning out the front office, and Doug Marrone probably won't be back in 2021. So good luck, Gardner Minshew, and stay strong out there, Duval. The Eagles just made a big move for their secondary by trading a 3rd and a 5th round pick for Lions cornerback Darius Slay, and now they can focus elsewhere in the 1st round. I'm sure Eagles fans are going to be begging for Justin Jefferson since he's the flavor of the week for his 40 time at the NFL Combine, but I'm pivoting since I've done nothing but give the Eagles a wide receiver here in every mock draft. The Eagles still haven't replaced Jordan Hicks, so let's go ahead and make it 3 LSU players in a row here with Patrick Queen. LSU has been a middle linebacker factory for the NFL over the last decade, and Patrick Queen fits the same mold of those freakish athletes with raw ability that excel in coverage, basically the new prototype for the position. Queen only played a season's worth of games, but he showed up big against some of the best competition and in some of the biggest games for them. After trading Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills in exchange for pick number 22, the Minnesota Vikings are now on the clock. And after adding a year to Kirk Cousins' contract, the Vikings now have a 2-year window where they are going to be all in on the Super Bowl. The Vikings roster is actually still pretty stacked, but they could afford to add some pieces to the defense, especially in the secondary, and the offensive line could probably use a couple upgrades too. But you guys might not have noticed there is a prospect still on the board, and he's probably a perfect fit for the team that is next up on the clock in the New England Patriots, and that's Jordan Love. I'm throwing out being safe for a moment because I just can't let this happen. I can't allow Jordan Love to fall into the lap of the New England Patriots so that they can have another franchise quarterback and own the 2020s as well. And I know another AFC team that hasn't made a 1st round pick yet. They probably don't want to see the Patriots land a franchise quarterback in the 1st round either. So I have the Indianapolis Colts sending their 1st, their 3rd, and I don't care, another late round pick, whatever it takes, to move up and jump in front of the New England Patriots and grab Jordan Love to be their next franchise quarterback. Now I know that the Colts just signed Phillip Rivers, but that is a 1-year deal, and let's be honest, Phillip Rivers did not look very good last year. I do anticipate that he's going to look a lot better behind this Colts offensive line and in front of some real home field fans maybe, but either way, this is a 1-year experiment before you're right back in the draft looking for a future quarterback. Why don't you get ahead of that with a guy that has been falling, send some picks. You could have Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, and Jordan Love all in the same quarterback room, and that would solidify your present, your future, and your backup quarterback situations. Pick number 23, the Patriots are on the clock, the Tom Brady-less Patriots for the first time in 2 decades, and I'm still just completely blown away by it. But before we start to feel sorry for the Patriots, let's think about what the ever-calculated Bill Belichick is up to here. It's pretty obvious that Robert Kraft wanted Tom Brady to finish his career in New England, and yet Bill Belichick pulled out his coach's card and stopped it from happening. I like Jarrett Stidham, but I'm pretty sure that he didn't pull out his coach's card to let Tom Brady walk in free agency so that he could start Jarrett Stidham. Remember earlier I was talking about where Cam Newton might end up. Well, back in 2017, when the Patriots were getting ready to take on the Panthers, Bill Belichick called Cam Newton public enemy number 1 and just gushed over how big and strong and difficult to defend a guy like Cam Newton is. Well, he might not be that same guy from 2017, but Cam Newton is more than likely going to end up getting released. And if he's healthy and checks out with a physical, which is going to be kind of difficult with what's going on in today's world, but he's going to get his chance to start somewhere. And I'm just not one to believe or to buy that the Patriots are that interested in Andy Dalton of all people, one of the least clutch quarterbacks that I think we've ever seen. And who else is out there? Jameis Winston? I highly doubt that Belichick goes that far on the other side of the spectrum for a quarterback that's just too risky with the ball. Now, I think that he is going to definitely look into Cam Newton as the Patriots starting quarterback in 2020, and that's terrifying to me, to be honest. But I don't anticipate the Patriots actually looking into drafting a quarterback at number 23. I think that Jordan Love will go at some point before this, whether a team trades right in front of them like I have playing out, or he goes much earlier than this. Somebody's going to fall in love with this guy's talent, and he's going to be gone before the Patriots pick at 23. But quarterback position aside, while making my previous mock draft, mock number 2, I came to the realization of who the most Patriots-like player was in this draft, or at least the one likely to be available in the early 20s range. Isiah Simmons is probably Belichick's favorite player in the draft, but there's no way that he gets his hands on him without a big trade up. You might be thinking AJ Epinesa, and while I think he'd be a great fit also, teams might shy away from him because he had such a rough combine, and it's unlikely he gets to redeem himself at the originally scheduled Iowa Pro Day on March 23rd. But Wisconsin linebacker / edge rusher Zach Bond has Belichick written all over him. He is Kyle Van Noy with a higher ceiling, and with Van Noy now headed down to the Dolphins, and Jamie Collins headed to the Lions, and Dante Hightower on the wrong side of 30, Zach Bond to me makes the most sense. At number 24, we have the New Orleans Saints. On the other side of the spectrum, Drew Brees and the Saints have publicly recognized how much they both need each other if they're going to be relevant in 2020. But honestly, the Saints and Patriots have done their Hall of Fame quarterbacks a disservice at the end of their careers by not restocking the shelf with wide receivers aplenty. Now, I want to clarify something in my last video where I ranked the top 10 wide receivers in this class. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's one of my best performing videos ever on this channel. Honestly, don't even know what I did right in that one that made it pop off like that, but I appreciate all you guys for watching it and stuff. But yeah, in that video, I ranked my wide receivers in tiers or groups based on the kind of prospect they are, because I didn't want to sit here and split hairs and say that one guy is definitively better in my mind than the other guy. Justin Jefferson led my safe tier, which was a group of wide receivers that I felt like were the safest options without that elite potential that the top 2 guys have in the class. The other tier was the high ceiling, low floor group of guys, and these 2 tiers were almost meant to be looked at from a parallel level, but it's probably my fault for not clearly communicating that in the build-up. Also, my fancy little top 10 countdown sidebar thing kind of contradicts that imagery also. But imagine the 3 tiers that I mentioned stacking up like a pyramid, with the elite guys at the top and the other 2 tiers running adjacent to one another. So, with Justin Jefferson at the top of my safe tier, means that I saw him as right under the elite guys, but maybe not quite as high as a guy like Henry Ruggs, Jalen Reagor, one of those guys with a really high ceiling. It all really depends on what these NFL teams are looking for. Some teams, like the Saints, they don't need an elite guy. They've got Michael Thomas. So they might have a safer, more reliable wide receiver like Justin Jefferson higher on their board than a guy like Jalen Reagor, who might end up being more of an electric player than Jefferson overall, but it could take him a little longer to get acclimated to the NFL, and he's also got a much lower floor. Jefferson was the guy that got the most feedback on that video, and it was because I said I didn't think that he had elite speed, and then of course the day I posted, he goes and busts out a 4.40 or whatever, and I don't think that him running a fast 40 necessarily makes him a fast wide receiver. It just confirms that he has legit NFL athleticism, which is what you wanted to see. But if you watch him play, he just doesn't win against defensive backs with speed. It's not part of his game. He's more of a dancer, of a route runner. He's going to set defensive backs up with sleights of movement rather than just burning right past them. But I think that this matchup and this pairing, being a local fit, it just all makes so much sense to me. This is one of those picks that I think could happen. I would like to see it happen. And I just think it would be good for the game of football. At pick number 25, the Vikings are on the clock again, and this time they are going to stay put and make a pick. They went ahead and released Xavier Rhodes right before free agency, and I think the cornerback is probably their biggest need. Luckily for them, it is a deep cornerback draft, and TCU's Jeff Gladney is the last guy I think with a true first round grade on the board. He's super versatile, good athleticism, and number one corner potential. At pick number 26, the Dolphins are back on the clock for the third time. After setting up their offense for the future, they're going to need to turn their attention towards fixing the defense for the present. They run a hybrid front and could use a tweener to add flexibility to shift between defensive looks. AJ Epinesa had a terrible combine, but his brute strength and physicality is something that they still can't numerically measure with the combine drills just yet. I'd love to see the NFL use some of the tech from Next Gen Stats or that old ESPN, Sports Science, and get some real analytics of these guys based on their size and strength. I'm sure that'll come one day, but for now we're stuck with the skewed 2020 results because of the switch to primetime. Like I said before, I don't know if we're going to get any of these college pro days. Iowa's is on March 23rd, and I bet that Epinesa could have had a big improvement on his testing numbers. We'll have to stay tuned to see if they still move forward with those pro days. At pick number 27, the Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. Jadeveon Clowney is probably going to break the bank somewhere with more cap space than the Seahawks can afford. And Ezekiel Ansah, well, he was a huge free agent bust last year. You've got to hope for last year's first rounder, LJ Collier, to move inside and make more of an impact at defensive tackle next year. But edge rush has to be addressed early in the 2020 NFL draft. YGM has bags of potential, and I remember reading on Twitter that he was a huge star during the interview process at the NFL Combine. He didn't do any of the speed or agility drills, but hopefully these guys get to have a pro day of some sort in the future, or else I think a lot of these guys are really going to regret not taking their opportunity to show what they could do at the NFL Combine. I've heard rumors that the Seahawks might be a landing spot for Jaguars edge rusher Yannick Ngakoue because they're expected to do the old tag and trade move that the Seahawks did last year with Frank Clark, and Ngakoue would fill the need for the Seahawks, but why even let Frank Clark go last year if you were just going to replace him with another expensive veteran contract that you had to trade for? Ngakoue will probably cost a second round pick in a trade, but then you'll have to try and sign him to a long-term contract, and I just don't know if this trading picks for a 1-year rental really works with pass rushers. At number 28, I've got the Ravens on the clock, and this is the pick that initially delayed this mock draft. I wanted to get Stephon Diggs for the Ravens for this pick. I had no idea that DeAndre Hopkins was even on the block, but he was unlikely ever really even in the cards for Baltimore. Bill O'Brien probably wanted to keep him out of the AFC altogether, and that's why he accepted what seems like less than market value for one of the best receivers in the league. I don't see the Ravens going for another wide receiver in the first round, but there has been some shakeup on the offensive line for the Ravens, and when you're a rushing team, that's kind of a high priority for you. They had future Hall of Fame guard Marshall Yonder retire, and then their starting center Matt Skura received the original round tender, and he was an undrafted free agent, which means any team can steal him away without draft compensation. Michigan center Cesar Ruiz is kind of a reach, but getting the top center in the draft to grow with Lamar Jackson is a peace of mind that you really can't underestimate. At 29, we have the Tennessee Titans. I had this whole thing about the Titans quarterback situation and the speculation that Tom Brady was a possibility, and I gotta say, I appreciate the no-nonsense approach by the Titans to get this thing done with Tannehill as soon as the CBA was agreed upon. But that situation didn't really have any impact on this mock draft. It was just something I felt like needed to be addressed either way. Pass rush is the Titans' biggest need heading into free agency, even more so after the release of Cam Wake a year after signing him. And I've given the Titans Notre Dame's Julian Okwara in damn near every single mock draft thus far. Okwara is just such an intriguing fit with a 3-4 defense, but I'm switching it up for a similarly intriguing 3-4 pass rusher with probably more athleticism in Alabama's Terrell Lewis. But you know what Uncle Ben says, with great athleticism comes greater risk of injury, or something like that. Lewis has the physical traits of a Trace Young, but not the reliability to stay on the field. He's now a year removed from the 2018 ACL tear and could be a sleeper to make a big impact in his rookie season. At pick number 30, we have the Green Bay Packers on the clock. Jimmy Graham was a failed free agent signing for the Packers, and they don't make too many of those, so you know they've got to really want to right that wrong this year. So there's got to be a plan to add more weapons to this offense by choosing to move on from Jimmy Graham so swiftly in the offseason. The Packers really must have liked what they saw in practice from 2019 third rounder Jay Stern Berger and feel comfortable that his body is ready for a full season after his rookie year started late due to injuries sustained in the preseason. Last year, their second leading receiver was a second-year undrafted free agent in Allen Lazard. Now, I loved Allen Lazard coming out of college and was dumbfounded when he went undrafted. You can actually go back and watch some of the terrible old versions of my mock drafts back then for proof, but I hope that he continues to make strides in the NFL. But this offense and Aaron Rodgers was missing a dynamic weapon like Randall Cobb last year, and even though he's falling down draft boards, I love the idea of adding Laviska Shenault to this Packers wide receiving core. He is a bigger version of Cobb with dreads, basically, and would be able to improvise and thrive with a backyard style of quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. But without players players being able to work out at pro days, I wouldn't be surprised to see guys like Laviska Shenault with a little bit of injury concern falling even farther down the boards. This is most definitely going to be one of the more unique draft seasons that we've ever experienced. At pick number 31, the 49ers are back on the clock, their original first round pick, and in my unprofessional opinion, I think that the 49ers are going to trade down from number 31, especially now that they've got the 13th pick and they've got a chance to satisfy that need for a top prospect. I'm going to keep hammering this home until I'm proven right because it just makes so much sense, and these last couple of picks in the first round tend to get traded every single year with teams early in the second trying to get up and get a guy that they can add that 5th-year option onto. But since I've only got 3 trades, I've already used up 2 of them. I've got 1 of them planned for later in this second round. I'm sticking here and addressing the biggest need in the secondary, which I thought it might be safety, but after the new 3-year deal with Jimmy Ward, I've got the 49ers taking Clemson cornerback AJ Terrell, and a lot of people have a bad opinion of AJ Terrell based on how he got kind of torched in the national championship game, but that was just a tough situation against a stacked passing attack, and this guy's got the length and the size that you want from a cornerback in this 49ers defensive scheme. And then with the last pick in the first round, pick number 32, we finally have the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Last mock draft, I had them going with a running back in DeAndre Swift. And I gotta admit, I was kind of expecting heavy blowback from Chiefs fans, but surprisingly, there's a lot of you that were on board, given the state of the Chiefs roster right now and the fact that you get that 5th-year option and so on and so on. But that was a luxury pick for me, just stating what I think that they should do. By the way, I never do a mock draft where I claim that every pick is what I think they should do, or state that the entire mock is where I predict what will actually happen or what I think will actually happen. I'm not sure why that's become a thing in the last couple of years with mock drafts. My mocks are always a combination of those concepts. I try to blend in logic, rumors, reputations, suggestions from you guys, and any other factor that could influence a team to lean a certain way. This might lead to more criticism than others, but I like to think that it also makes the mocks feel more logical and collaborative at the same time. Anyways, back to the Chiefs. With the theme of staying safe and conservative here, the Chiefs desperately need some linebackers that are more suited for this 4-3 scheme, because the majority of these guys were brought in for the previous scheme and they're just not quick enough or athletic enough to cover as well as they need to. This isn't a very deep linebacking class, but Kenneth Murray has fallen into their lap, and this would be a slam dunk pick if he was available there in the back end of the first round. And now moving on to the second round, and I'm going to try to do these a little bit faster by just batching these picks together and flying right through the second round descriptions. All right, at 33, Lucas Niang could replace Cordy Glenn from day one for the Bengals. At 34, the Vikings are back on the clock after my mock draft trade with the Colts so that they could select Jordan Love. I've got the Vikings finding their Stephon Diggs replacement in TCU's Jalen Reagor, who I think would be a perfect fit opposite of Adam Thielen and could be the guy that the Vikings were hoping for in Percy Harvin, which is a dynamic aspect to add into their run-first mentality that they're trying to shift to. At 35, I've got the Lions selecting Julian Okwara out of Notre Dame. I'm still high on this guy, and I think that the Lions defense could be a really great place for him to find a versatile role, and he gets to play with his brother Romeo. At number 36, the Giants add a center field safety to complement Jabril Peppers because Antoine Bethea is like 100 years old. At 37, after snagging an edge rusher from the Giants at 35, the Lions use their bonus pick here from their trade down with the Chargers to grab local offensive weapon Donovan Peoples-Jones. At number 38, I've got the Panthers selecting interior defensive lineman Neville Gallimore out of Oklahoma. Gerald McCoy left for the Cowboys, and this defensive tackle position has been somewhat of a rotating door for the last few years, and it's time for the Panthers to get some stability. At 39, I have the Dolphins taking the first running back off the board in Georgia's running back DeAndre Swift. The Dolphins aren't working with much at running back right now, so I definitely think that they're going to end up taking a running back at some point in this draft. If the best one falls into their lap this late, I think they've got to make the move. At pick 40, the Texans are now on the clock with the Cardinals' original pick, and I have them selecting Baylor wide receiver Denzel Mims. He's not going to replace DeAndre Hopkins, but at least he gives you a big number 1 wide receiver sized target, because you really can't rely on the current batch of wide receivers in Houston because they all have checkered injury past. At 41, the Browns select safety Ashton Davis. They still need defensive backs with speed and athleticism there, and Davis could replace Morgan Burnett sooner than later. At 42, the Jaguars finally get their cornerback in UVA's Bryce Hall. Bryce Hall would have been a first-round pick had he not injured himself this year. He's a great man corner with great size and was a big leader on one of the nation's better defenses in 2018. 43, Fresno State's Netane Muti is the kind of offensive lineman that can reshape the entire identity of an offensive line unit. At 44, the Colts select Clemson wide receiver T. Higgins. The Colts need another big wide receiver, and who knows if they were to make that Jordan Love trade that I had playing out earlier, if they would have had to potentially give this pick up. But it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. They've been looking for a big wide receiver like this for a while now, and I think that this would be a great landing place for T. Higgins. At 45, I've got the Bucs going with Jonathan Taylor, running back from Wisconsin, because they needed a more dynamic running back, and Jameis Winston might not have been so aggressive with the football had he felt like he had a reliable running game to hand the ball off to and didn't end up in so many third and long situations. 46, a good GM won't let pride get in the way of fixing a former mistake, and John Elway just needs to move on from Garrett Bowles for Drew Lock's sake. Ezra Cleveland might be a late first rounder in a normal draft class, but with all this offensive tackle depth, Ezra Cleveland is going to fall to a team in a similar way that Dalton Risner fell to the Broncos last year. They moved him inside to guard last year, so imagine Ezra Cleveland and Dalton Risner holding down the left side of the Broncos line for a long time. At 47, the Falcons get a guy to play alongside Grady Jarrett and take a little bit of the pressure off of him so they can form a nice pass rushing duo and rotation in the middle of the defensive line. At 48, after shoring up the offensive line and the interior with some free agent signings, the Jets can turn their attention to surrounding their quarterback with some more playmakers, and here I've got them reuniting Sam Darnold with his USC wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. At 49, I've got the Steelers going with Michigan edge rusher Josh Uche. Bud Dupree did get the franchise tag, but I don't trust breakout pass rushers in contract years, so even if you think he can do it again, his price tag is going to be absurdly high next offseason if he does, and Josh Uche is a more balanced linebacker that can play in space almost as well as he rushes the passer. At pick 50, I've got the Chicago Bears selecting Trayvon Diggs. Diggs is one of those guys that I really would have liked to have seen run at the NFL Combine. He was probably expecting to get that pro day, but like so many other guys, they're not going to be able to get the chance this year, and it might end up costing them a lot in draft slots. At 51, the Cowboys could get former Pro Bowl corner Antoine Winfield's son, Antoine Winfield Jr. At 52, the Rams grab local offensive tackle prospect Austin Jackson, because Andrew Whitworth is probably never going to be as good as he was the first year he had him. At 53, I've got the Eagles selecting Arizona State wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. This guy just got better and better every year at the college level after transferring from junior college, and would be a great option for a guy like Carson Wentz to get the ball out quickly, get the ball in his hands, and let Brandon Ayuk make something happen after the catch. And then here, pick 54 is where I have my third and final trade of this mock draft. I've got the Jaguars trading edge rusher Yannick Ngakoue to the Buffalo Bills in exchange for pick 54. And with this pick, I've got the Jaguars selecting this year's Combine workout warrior, Notre Dame's Chase Claypool, who's listed at wide receiver, but I think that he is best suited to be a tight end at the next level. The Jaguars are just in need of go-to pass catchers at both wide receiver and tight end. At 55, the Ravens are now on the clock after trading Hayden Hurst to the Falcons, and it's really hard to find where the Ravens should go here, but I've got them selecting Raekwon Davis out of Alabama as a pick for not only depth now, but more so for down the line. The Ravens really like to take a patient approach with their guys, and having Raekwon Davis around a guy like Calais Campbell for a couple years could be the difference between this guy making it in the NFL or not. At 56, the Dolphins have similarly set themselves up to the way that the Jets have, with some low budget, low risk, interior offensive linemen that could start for them in a pinch, but I don't believe that building your offensive line with band-aids is the way to go long term, and this team is trying to set themselves up right now to take over the AFC East, so I'm going to give them a championship center in LSU's Lloyd Cushenberry III. At 57, I've got the Texans shoring up their defensive line and getting some insurance in case that playoff version of JJ Watt shows up more in 2020. Justin Matabuke is more of a nose tackle, but is so disruptive that he can play anywhere along the defensive line in this defense. At 58, I've got the Vikings going back to Ohio State for some interior offensive line help in Jonah Jackson. At 59, I've got the Seahawks getting an offensive tackle from Auburn, Prince Tega Wanogo. Third time's the charm there. At pick 60, I've got the Ravens going for a wide receiver finally in Penn State's KJ Hamler. Heaven forbid something happened to Hollywood Brown. You're going to need that speed threat. It's a copycat league. The Chiefs did it with Mecole Hardman and Tyreek Hill. KJ Hamler and Hollywood Brown could be your store brand version of those guys. One of the more confusing moves of the week so far was the Titans trading away Jarrell Casey for such little in return. Casey's been one of my favorite and one of the most underrated players in the league for a long time, so at 61 I find a replacement for him in Auburn's Marlon Davidson. At 62 I've got the Packers drafting Noah, please don't make me say his last name, from Auburn. They need more cornerbacks there, even though they've got a #1 corner in Jair Alexander. Kevin King has been kind of up and down, and the cupboard's pretty bare after that. At pick number 63, the Chiefs finally get their running back in J.K. Dobbins. Man, this is a really talented running back class at a position that's being undervalued more and more every single year. It's pretty crazy to watch the lack of interest in these free agent running backs, but some of these guys are going to go in the second round and make a huge instant impact in the NFL. I bet you all of them are praying that they fall to the end of the second round, right into the Chiefs' lap. And with the last pick in the second round at number 64, I got the Seahawks solidifying the middle of their offensive line with a new center in Washington's Nick Harris. That's going to do it for the first 2 rounds. I would have loved to have given a breakdown on every single one of these picks, but with the way that this year has just been going, guys, I just did not have time to really break it all down and go pick by pick. These mock drafts, they do take a lot out of me, and right around the NFL Combine, right after that, all 3 of my kids got sick at the very same time. Then my wife and I got hit with it too. It was some kind of nasty virus going around our town, not the virus going around right now, but it was a pretty crappy one in its own sense. And I think that's why my wife and I decided we were going to do everything that we could to hashtag flatten the curve, not only because we wanted to make sure that we protected our own parents who are somewhat elderly folks, but we just can't handle all 3 of our kids being sick at the same time again, so close together. I mean, it was a week from hell, and I was so sick that I actually lost my voice. I had laryngitis. Yeah, my voice was completely shot, so that's why there's been such a long gap in between this video and my top 10 wide receivers video, which really sucks because that's literally the best performing video that I've ever had in such a short amount of time, and I really wanted to ride the momentum from that and come back and hit draft season really hard. And then we all got sick and it just fell apart for me. And honestly, with all this stuff going on around the world and everything being shut down and canceled, it felt like the NFL and sports in general were all just kind of taking a back seat to everything else that was going on. And it seemed more important for all of us to do some research on what's going on and find out how serious that we needed to really be taking this thing. And I think that we've all come to the conclusion that, yeah, we just need to ride this out, do a little social distancing. For me, that's more than easy enough. I feel like I've been training for this my whole life, and I hope that you guys are doing your part too to make sure that this thing is as manageable as possible for our medical system. And even though I feel like I got robbed a couple precious weeks of making draft videos, my wife, who is a school teacher, is now home all day to help me watch over the kids, which will free me up to do more stuff like this. I do owe you guys a top 10 quarterbacks video after nailing the likes goal on my top 10 wide receivers video, so you can expect that video out next. But yeah, NFL free agency is officially here, guys, and I think personally that this is going to serve as a great distraction for everybody that is a football fan to get their mind off something other than toilet paper and washing their hands and not touching their face and staying 3 feet away from people when they're talking to them and whatnot. While all the other sports had to get canceled, at least the NFL is hitting a part of the season where everything can be done remotely thanks to the internet and technology being allowed to communicate and sign things digitally. And now that this CBA has been voted upon, I think that everything that teams have been planning for the past few weeks is really about to take off, and we're about to have a very crazy NFL offseason that we will probably remember forever, based on the fact that there's literally nothing else for us to focus on because everybody is just stuck in their houses as much as possible. So yeah, stay tuned. This should be an exciting ride here, guys. I hope that I can help serve as a distraction that we all need right now. My goal on this video is going to be 3,000 likes. Please help me hit that goal to help support the channel, to help make more videos like this one, and I will be able to see you all in the next video.